click on the link. So what I want to speak about today again is some of the fundamentals, folks. All of you need to keep in mind for your interviews, right? Because it's not just a matter of asking, some three or four or whatever it is, like really great questions. What you need to be doing is understanding the fundamentals and the psychology and the whole theory behind why you need to be asking these questions in the first place. So I see a few people have mentioned they can't click on the link, so I'm not sure what's happening there. So you might have to copy and paste the link, or if you can't download it, just feel free to send me a direct message after the session, and I'd be happy to do that. I mean, at my end, I don't see any issues, guys. Like, I'm able to click on the link here. I'm just looking at the live stream myself. So maybe it's the platform you guys are using, or I don't know what it is. But if you can't click on the link, make sure you send me a direct message, right? So I'd be happy to share that link with you. Or let me try pasting it again, maybe. Let me try copying and pasting it again. I did it again. Looks like it is working, but if there's any issues, let me know, folks. All right. So the fundamentals of interviews, and let me know in the comments what questions all of you folks have about interviews, job interviews, how to interview effectively. Any interview related questions you have, feel free to put in the comments. I'm happy to get to the questions later. But before I get into the questions and the Q&A, what I wanted to speak about again is a bit of theory, right, regarding interview fundamentals. So the first thing, and by the way, if you're taking notes, this is definitely a session you want to take notes on, right? Because I'm going to be talking about concepts. Today's about concepts, folks, okay? I'm not going to be talking about tactics or anything. Today's about concepts and fundamentals, right? So be prepared to take notes. So fundamental number one that all of you need to keep in mind, and this pretty much, it doesn't matter what country you're from, as far as I know, right? Because the philosophy, the purpose, the intention behind interviews, whatever country you're in, whatever city you're in, whatever field. Actually, I know that most of you tuning in are IT professionals, but this applies to any field, because the fundamentals regarding interviews, again, folks, all the same, right? It's always the same, regardless of your location or what type of field, industry, domain, or any of that. So fundamental number one, the interview is actually not just about you, folks. The interview is not about you. At a fundamental level, and I want everyone taking notes now, before you freak out and start panicking and saying, hey, Dean, what are you talking about, blah, 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 calm down, relax. I'm going to explain what I mean by that, right? The interview is not about you. The interview is not about you. Now, this is probably one of the most important things that a lot of job seekers don't grasp, that if grasped, will actually allow you to better understand how you need to be structuring the conversation and structuring your questions and what kind of questions you need to be formulating. And it's based on the fact that the interview is not about you. And what I mean by that, folks, is at the end of the day, the reason the interview is taking place is because, number one, the organization has a project or some kind of a problem that they need resolved, right? This is number one. That's I guess, what is it? Principle number one regarding interviews. Now, number two is the problem that they have, or the project that they need to have completed, requires someone with a certain skill set to be brought in and bring a resolution to the problem or to the project, right? That's the number two thing you need to keep in mind in regards to why interviews take place. Number three is potentially you are the person with that skill set that has the ability to come in and solve that problem. And therefore, the organization, based on the fact that they have a problem, they have a project that they need to be brought to resolution, goes out into the marketplace, goes out into the job market to search and seek people with your skill set to consider to be brought in to interview, right? To assess their ability or their capabilities, or the probability that they might be the ones to bring resolution to the problem. So that's what all of you need to be keeping in mind in terms of why the interview is taking place. So it's not because that they want to meet job seekers, folks. This is one of the key fundamentals all of you folks need to understand. Is it's not just about them bringing in a whole bunch of random people, including yourself, to just talk about them and learn about them and things like that. They definitely want to do that. They definitely want to know more about you. But at a fundamental level, the purpose of the interview is so that they can figure out who's going to help them with the problem that they have at their organization. The problem could be a project, right? It could be a development project. Could be someone left the team and there's a backlog of work. Could be that the senior person left the team. And now there's a whole bunch of junior or intermediate level individuals that need guidance and all that stuff. That's the problem. Could be that they're in high growth mode, right? They're suddenly acquiring new customers, new business coming in. They can't keep up with the workflow. That could be another potential problem. Problem could be that I don't know. They have a disgruntled customer, right? The customer is not happy with the way a product was delivered or a project was handled. They're really upset. They need to rectify it. The company fired the person who was in charge of the project. Now they need someone else to come on. Those are the core problems that result in them wanting to interview candidates, folks. And these, I'm making the assumption these are for real, actual hiring needs. I'm not talking about fake interviews here. We're not talking about the fake interviews. We're talking about why they want to interview you in the first place, right? So the purpose of the interview from the organization standpoint is not just to meet people, not just to learn about you and who you are and that stuff. That definitely does come into play. But at a fundamental level, remember, we're talking about fundamentals here, right? At a fundamental level, what they're trying to figure out is, hey, we got this problem. We got problem XYZ. We have project XYZ. And we need to find someone that we can bring in to bring a resolution to this project or to this problem. That's at a fundamental level, the purpose of the interview from the organization standpoint. And everything else, folks, is icing on the cake, right? Cultural fit, you're nice, you're friendly, you're going to get along with the team. All that stuff is definitely important. I'm not saying that's not important. That's definitely important. But at a fundamental level, you need to be able to communicate at the interview how you can solve or bring resolution to whatever their problem is or whatever that project is, right? So that's a fundamental everyone needs to understand. So always understand, always remember, at a fundamental level, the interview is not just about you and yourself and your achievements, your projects, your certifications, your education, how great you are, how passionate you are about your field and all that stuff. Definitely, that's definitely, they're going to cover that stuff. I'm not saying that's not important. That is definitely important. But at a fundamental level, the purpose of the interview is that the organization has a problem, right? They have a problem, they have a project that's resulting in some kind of issues at their end. And the problem is significant enough that they're willing to set aside a budget, right? Also known as salary, rate, compensation package, all of that stuff. The problem is that big that they're willing to set aside whatever the compensation package is to actually invest in someone to come in and get them an ROI or whatever the ROI is, or handle this problem or bring a resolution to this project or this problem. That is the fundamental everyone needs to keep in mind regarding interviews. And the reason why a lot of you struggle in your interviews in terms of not standing out, right? You go in, everyone seems to be having a good time. You're laughing, you're cracking jokes with the interviewers. Everyone's happy, everyone's smiling, and then after the interview, what happens? You get ghosted. You don't hear back from them. They don't give you any updates, or they say, hey, we decided to go with someone else. We found someone else that's a better fit. And you're left wondering, what the heck happened? Like, I thought we were all, friends. I thought we were all happy, smiling, having a good time, having a good conversation. What happens? Well, it's because you might have presented yourself as a good cultural fit and friendly and professional and passionate, enthusiastic, all that stuff. You probably hit all of those right on the head. You probably did excellently on those aspects of the interview. What you failed was at the fundamental. You didn't address the fundamental, and that is, how is this person? How are you going to help bring resolution to this problem the organization is experiencing, or this project that they need brought to a resolution? That's the missing component. And that's why all of you need to make sure you understand this fundamental, right? So always remember this fundamental. The interview is not simply about you, learning about you and your accomplishments, your achievements, your certification, your education, all that stuff. The interview, again, at a fundamental level, is about the organization having a problem and them needing someone to be brought in to solve that problem. And if you're not addressing that fundamental, that's when the interview becomes like a mystery, right? You're not sure what happened, no response, no feedback, things not moving ahead and all that stuff. So always keep this in mind, folks, fundamental, right? Now the second fundamental I wanted to speak about, and this builds on the first fundamental, that is, given the fact, right, that the interview is based on the organization's need to solve a problem, you at your end, as a potential candidate for the position, need to be communicating or treating this entire conversation from a consultative approach. You need to be taking a consultative approach, right? And I see some thumbs up here from my Instagram people. Miss Moss 6, thanks, appreciate the thumbs up. Great to hear that you're finding value in the content, appreciate that. But so the second thing, folks, building from fundamental number one is you at the interview need to be taking a consultative approach. A consultative approach. So at the interview, don't think of yourself as a job seeker or just someone there that they're looking to meet and figure out for some kind of whether you're a nice person or you're the right culture fit. I mean, again, definitely that's important, but you need to position yourself as a consultant at the interview. You need to be asking strong, relevant, and strategic questions so you can understand what exactly the problem is that the organization is looking to solve. If you're not doing that, then you're not going to be able to figure out how to position yourself, right? So you need to be taking a consultative approach at your interviews. You need to be asking the right questions. You need to be asking questions that help you uncover what the issues, the concerns, the problems, the problem areas, the pain points. Throughout the conversation, you need to be asking those consultative questions to help you better understand the details about the project and the position and all of that. If you're not doing that, you're not going to get that strong understanding. And guess what? You're not going to be able to really position yourself as a strong candidate for the position because, again, you would not be addressing that fundamental, right? The first fundamental we spoke about. Now, third thing I want to speak about is, and I know some of you might be wondering, well, how about what I want, Dean, like in the job? Like I got to make sure that the job is the right fit for me. Absolutely 100%, folks. I'm not saying you should not be qualifying the position as a great career fit for yourself as a candidate, as a potential employer, right, at this company. Like, do you even want to work at this place? Can you see yourself working at this place for like 9 hours a day? Absolutely 100%. You still need to be qualifying the opportunity, right? But what I'm saying is aside from ensuring that the position, the opportunity is the right fit for you, right? You need to be understanding the hiring motivation from the organization standpoint throughout the conversation. That's my point. So definitely you have two tasks right at the interview. First of all, you got to definitely figure out if you even like the opportunity or whether the opportunity is the right fit for you. You definitely need to figure it out. What I'm talking about is the other half, right? The other 50% of your task is to discover the fundamental hiring motivation and the hiring need of the organization. If you're not doing that, that's when the interviews become a mystery to you, right? You don't hear back from them. You have the good rapport. Everyone seems happy and friendly and joking and all that stuff. And then after the interview, you're like, okay, what happened? Like, I thought we were all, everything was good. I thought they really liked me, and now I'm not hearing back from them. And again, that's because you might have done the first 50%, right? Figuring out it's a good role for you, a good opportunity for you, and building the rapport, showing how you're a nice person and professional and all that stuff. But you failed at the second 50%, right? Which is identifying the need, the actual hiring need, the actual hiring motivation, the fundamental from the organization standpoint. And that's why they might not, they might be professional and friendly and all that, obviously, because they don't want to be, discourteous or unprofessional to you at the interview, right? But it's just that at the interview itself, you weren't able to really uncover and speak to what their problem was and what the real fundamental core issues and core problem was. So those are the fundamentals I want to speak about today, folks, right? So those are some things all of you need to keep in mind for your interviews. Number one, the interview is not just about you. It's not just about you and what you want and the fact that you want a job or that you're amazing, fantastic, and you're a good fit for the role. Definitely that's important. But in order to understand which aspects of yourself you want to present and speak about and talk about, you need to understand that the interview is not just about you. It's about the organization's need for getting someone in to solve a problem that the organization has. That is the fundamental about interviews. A lot of job seekers, a lot of you are missing out on, and you're focused entirely on yourself and your need for a job. But the fact is the interview is taking place because the organization has a problem that they need solved, and they require someone with your skill set to come in and solve the problem, right? And everything else is icing on the cake, folks. Everything else is, rainbows and ponies and icing on the cake and cultural fit and friendliness and rapport and all that stuff. And by the way, and again, I want to stress this again. I'm not saying none of that is not important. It's definitely important. But if you're not able to communicate at a fundamental level how you can solve the problem, none of the other stuff is going to matter. They're not going to feel confident in considering you for the role or moving you forward in the process. So again, having that understanding is what's going to allow you to take a consultative approach and ask the right questions to steer the conversation in the direction that you want, and really communicate how you can effectively or be the prime candidate to help this organization, right? So that's what I wanted to talk about today. And again, going from this theory, that's how you're going to best understand my PDF, right? That I released or that I spoke about at the TO Tech Career Fair. And again, I'm gonna put that in the comments again, folks. Make sure you download that PDF, right? 3 killer questions you need to be asking at your interviews. Again, that's going to help you understand the fundamentals of what the organization is looking for and why they're looking for someone with your skill set. Because if you don't understand the fundamental reason why they're hiring, you're just in a lesser position to really effectively position yourself as a prime candidate for the position, right? No, I'm not saying if you don't do any of this, your all hope is lost. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you're going to be in a stronger position, right? To position yourself, you're going to be in a stronger position if you have a stronger understanding of the fundamentals that the organization is looking for. So I'm just going to put that link again in the comments, and make sure that you download the PDF, folks. Again, let me put it in the comments here again. For those of you tuning in, let me see here. I don't know why the live stream at mine keeps pausing, but let me put it in here again. Okay, so I put it there again in the comments, so hopefully you folks can see that. And let me put it for all my Facebook and YouTube viewers as well. So all of you folks can download that PDF as well, right? The 3 killer questions you need to be asking that's going to help you get an understanding of those fundamentals, right? So that's today's session, folks. So look, I appreciate everyone tuning in from Instagram. Shout out to everyone on all my IG people for tuning in. Appreciate that. Shout out to everyone on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope. Now I'm going to open up the floor for questions. And who has questions? Anyone has any questions? I want you to put them in the comments. So I'm happy to respond to any questions. I'm going to look if anyone has any questions here in the meantime. But folks, put all your questions in the comments. I'm going to get around to your questions shortly. Okay, so Ajay, I know early on you asked this question. How do you tackle proxy interviews? Not sure what you mean by that, Ajay. Feel free to clarify in the comments. I don't know what you mean by proxy interviews. So definitely clarify that, and I'll be happy to share my perspective. Let's see who else. Who else has questions? By the way, how do you like my hat? Got my logo on it, right? Let me know in the comments. So let me see any other questions here, and feel free to put your questions in the comments, folks. Happy to answer your questions. Any questions? Anything related to today's topic, or if not, anything related to the job search. I'm happy to answer anything job search related. So I'm looking for questions here. Okay, so Amit has a question here. So Amit says, "Hi, I'm working as an analyst in Deutsche Bank in security settlement department. My question is, how can one get an opportunity if one wants to switch jobs outside of India?" Yeah, so Amit, great question. And I get this question from a lot of people, right? Like, Dean, how do I, if I'm in a different country, how do I get an opportunity in, say, Canada, in Toronto, or maybe some other countries, right? Now, Amit, I can't speak in terms of other countries, but I can speak in terms of Canada and maybe the US. It's a highly competitive local market here, especially now with the pandemic. So many people have been laid off locally, right? So it's very difficult for organizations to really consider and give consideration to people outside of the country when there's so many people locally available for work, right, and available on the market. Now, the exception to that, Amit, is if you have a high in demand skill set that the individuals or the organization in that country cannot find locally. That would be the exception. That would be the exception if for the organization to say, okay, look, I really need someone with this skill set. I can't find this person locally, so I'm gonna have to look outside of the country for this individual. Then that makes it much easier for the organization to make that make that decision and make that assessment that they want to look for someone outside of the country. But other than that, Amit, and I know it's maybe not the answer you're looking for, but I'm just giving you a realistic outlook, right? If your skill set can be found locally in the country of interest, I mean, it's pretty difficult for them to really consider someone outside of the country when they know they can find someone locally within their country or their city, right? But in the meantime, what you got to do, Amit, is you got to start building relationships with your target country, right? Target market, so that when you are at a point where you somehow find a way to land in the country, you already have a network in place and individuals you can reach out to, connect with, and communicate regarding opportunities. So great question, Amit. Hope that helps, and all the best to you in your job search and your career change to whatever country you're looking for. Let's see what other questions we have here. So what else here? What else? Looking for questions. Hey, Robert, nice to see you. I appreciate you tuning in, Robert. Not sure if you're still on, but appreciate you tuning in. Long time. Hope you and your family are doing great. Let's see. Any other questions? All right. So I guess Sim Baker, Sim Baker. I'm from Chittagong, Bangladesh. Hey, shout out to everyone in Bangladesh. Great people. I have a few Bangladeshi friends. Great people, great community. What's the basic difference in between Asia zone and European jobs interviews? Yeah, so Sim, I'm not sure actually. So I'm based out of Canada. So if you need North American jobs, job interview advice, I can help you with that. But no, I personally have not recruited for the Asia zone or European job interview. So unfortunately, I might not be able to help you with that. But thanks for tuning in. So what else? Any other questions? I'm just scrolling through here. Prathamesh says, can you share the PDF? Cannot find in the comments. Well, I mean, I did post it, Prathamesh. I'm not sure why it's not showing up. So yeah, I'm not sure, but feel free to send me a direct message. I'll be happy to share it in for those of you. So for those of you who can't see the link in the comments, feel free to send me a direct message. I'll be happy to share that with you. Who else here? KP joining in from Mississauga. Someone else giving Zoom interview instead of real interview. Yeah, so Ajay, I mean, right now everything is pretty much Zoom interviews, right? I mean, it's not. I mean, as far as I know, at least here in Canada, in Toronto, it's all Zoom interviews. Like, there's not going to be video interviews. And from what I'm hearing, we got the second wave around the corner, right, of this pandemic. So it's definitely, again, it's probably going to be back to a lockdown or back to everyone working remotely. So I'm not sure, Ajay, if you're here in Toronto or some other country, but here in Toronto, everything's Zoom interviews. So you gotta consider, preparing for your Zoom interviews. So if you're asking how to prepare for the Zoom interviews, you got to make sure the technology is set up. You have good lighting. They're able to see you. Your audio, your mic, and all that stuff is good and ready. And you still want to, the same rules apply to just like to a video or in-person interview, right? You got to be preparing for the interview. You got to be researching who's going to be, interviewing you from the organization side. You got to research the organization. Do your due diligence on the role, the job opportunity, and whatever it is they're interviewing you for. So other than that, same tips and advice as with just any regular interview, Ajay, right? Now, of course, in the Zoom, you got to try as much as possible to minimize the amount of distractions in wherever you're interviewing, right? In terms of the room you're in. So minimize the distractions, minimize the background noise. Again, everyone's working from home right now, so it's understandable if you might have kids running around and stuff like that. But try to keep it as much as possible to a minimum, right? So hope that helps, Ajay, and thanks for your question. Let's see who else is here. Hey, Gurpreet, nice to see you here. Appreciate you tuning in. Nice to see you here. Gurpreet is another great person to follow, folks, for job search tips and advice. Akansha says, in a situation where there is a brain freeze moment and you don't know what to say or you are nervous, how do you handle that? Yeah, so Akansha, great question. And look, it happens. Folks, it happens. And Akansha, this is not just for you. If you feel like nervous, anxiety, and you're frozen, it's completely normal, folks. It's a human thing, right? There's nothing wrong with you. It doesn't mean you're like I don't know, incompetent or something like that. So firstly, don't feel bad about that. It's completely normal. Now, the next thing is, folks, what can help prevent you from feeling that nervousness and that anxiety is preparation. Now, I'm not saying that you're not prepared for the interview, Akansha, but a lot of times, the reason why a lot of people face this anxiety or nervousness or brain freeze is maybe you have not prepared as well as you should have for the interview, or maybe you haven't done your due diligence or research regarding the organization, or maybe they asked you something that kind of came out of the left field, right? You weren't expecting the question. So this all comes down through to preparation, and something that I always advise candidates, even when I was recruiting, right? As a recruiter, when I was representing candidates, was you got to be the expert on your resume. You got to be the expert on all of your recent projects within the past 5 to 8 years. You need to go over, refresh yourself on all your projects, right? Because at the interview, what they're simply asking about is your experience. And if you're freaking out, Akansha, maybe you're freaking out because you're thinking about the ideal response or the ideal answer. You're more concerned about sounding intelligent or clever or witty or something like that. And the fact is, folks, it's just very simple. At the interview, like in the interview questions, just talk about your experiences, your ability to solve the problem, or your perspective on whatever question they're asking you, right? Not all questions have a right or wrong answer. A lot of questions they're going to ask you at interviews is about your mindset, your approach, your way of doing things, right? And obviously there are some questions where there is a right or wrong answer, but for the most part, they're trying to figure out your process, your approach, how you approach problems, how you tackle problems. So you got to be talking about how you do things your way, Akansha, right? So it's not just don't stress over, what's the perfect response or what's the perfect answer. A lot of times there's no perfect response or no perfect answer. What you got to focus on is you have a skill set, you have an expertise, and you're the expert in the room talking about how you can help this organization with whatever problem they have. So focus on that, Akansha. And of course, definitely put that preparation into place before the interview. So hope that helps, Akansha. Great question. Gurpreet, great advice. So, yeah, I appreciate that, Gurpreet. I really appreciate that. And Gurpreet also says, exactly, it's all about their needs and what they need. Yeah, totally, Gurpreet, right? And recently, Gurpreet and I partnered up on a group coaching program, and this was one of the things that Gurpreet stressed, right? And as well as something that I always stress as a recruiter when I'm representing candidates, you got to put the focus on understanding the organization's needs. If you're not doing that, then you're not handling your interviews in the most effective manner. So great comment there, Gurpreet. Thanks for tuning in. Someone asked, is the proper sequence in a resume for LinkedIn? Yeah, I'm not sure what you're asking there. So maybe clarify that question. Prathamesh says, any suggestion? How do we present ourselves in a Zoom interview as in person and online is different? Yeah, so I think I already answered that question, Prathamesh, from Ajay previously. So feel free to look at the replay of this, maybe rewind like a few minutes or so, where I discuss a few tips on preparing for Zoom interviews. But great question there. Hope that helps, Prathamesh. Raghav says, how to cope with the question, your last CTC? I'm not sure what CTC is, Raghav. I personally don't feel like giving the answer to this question. More and more organizations have started asking such questions in interviews to offer a salary figure accordingly, but it seems fair to decide on a salary figure based on what candidate can bring into the table and how much value one can add to a company in a role rather than judging a candidate based on a past salary figure and past designation. Okay, so I guess CTC refers to maybe your most recent salary or something like that, Raghav. So yeah, so basically what Raghav is saying, folks, is, hey, I'd rather not talk about my salary on focus on what I was getting paid for the last position, because I want to focus on what I'm able to offer the organization and what the organization is looking to offer or what the position is and blah, 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 all that stuff. I'd rather talk about that versus what I was getting paid most recently. So great question. And my advice on how to approach this, Raghav, is, look, tell the recruiter or the hiring manager or whoever it is you're speaking with, and I'm assuming they're asking you this early on in the conversation. So you can say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Hiring Manager, or hey, Mr. and Mrs. Recruiter, I totally understand, you want to get an understanding of what my recent compensation is. What I really want to do, Mr. and Mrs. Hiring Manager, and I'm happy to share that, but what I really want to do is learn a bit more about your organization's needs and what your problem is and what you want the ideal candidate to come in and solve or bring a resolution to, so that I can present an accurate figure based on what your requirements are for the role, as well as what the market rate is for my skill set or for my field, because I'm sure in your whatever project you have going on at your organization, Mr. and Mrs. Hiring Manager, is probably very unique and very different from the role that I was in previously. So there might be a discrepancy between the compensation for that versus what your project is, given that your project is probably has a very unique set of issues or circumstances and all these other variations. So what I first want to do is get an understanding of what the project is and what you're looking for the ideal person to resolve. And I'm certainly happy to discuss compensation from that point onwards. So that's how I would structure it, Raghav. You want to put the focus on them and their project and their problem. So again, this goes back to fundamental number one, right, which I discussed. The interview is about the organization's problem and their need to bring a resolution to that problem. So even if you don't want to talk about your past compensation, then put the focus on their problem or on what their project is, right? And you gotta position that logically, right, so that they see that it makes sense for them to first discuss the project before even getting around to compensation. Because if the right fit is not established, if they're not able to establish that you're the right fit to bring resolution to their problem or their project, then your compensation requirement is irrelevant, right? So let's first establish that the project is the right fit. So put the focus on that, Raghav, and that's how you should be structuring your conversation, right? So Ajay says, thanks, and I like your hat. Let me know if you need any help in recruiting for your clients. All right. Thanks, Ajay. Appreciate that. Gurpreet says, love the hat. Awesome. Thanks, Gurpreet. Appreciate that. Akansha says, great advice. And Ajay says, cost to company. All right, sounds good. So I believe I answered that question. So Raghav, hope that helps. And Ajay, thanks for clarifying that. So I don't see any more questions, folks. So I'm going to wrap this up. Look, I hope everybody got great value out of today's session. If you did, make sure you hit like, comment, and share with your network. And again, mark your calendars every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone, Toronto time, or East Coast time here in North America. I go live every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern time zone. So mark your calendars. Also, I just want to let all of you know, make sure you sign up for my newsletter. I've started releasing a weekly newsletter where I share job search tips and advice. So that you can find that on my website. It's www.deankulaweera.com/newsletter. So make sure you visit my website and feel free to sign up for my newsletter. Happy to provide you with weekly job search tips and strategies to help you out in your job search. So thanks so much, everyone. Let me know in the comments if you found this session useful. And again, make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. And if you want the link to that PDF, right, the 3 killer questions you need to be asking at your jobs. If you want this PDF, if you can't click on the link, which I put in the comments, send me a direct message. I'll be happy to share the link with you. So all of you can start asking those killer questions at your interviews. And don't forget the fundamentals, folks. Make sure the replay for this should be up soon. Watch the replay. Make sure you understand the fundamentals. Now remember the most important fundamental about the interviews, right? Fundamental number 1, the interview is not just about you. The interview is about the organization's need to solve a problem. And they require someone with your skill set to come in and solve that problem. And if you're not communicating how you are that person, folks, to come in and solve that problem, then the rest of the interview is not really going to matter. Like you have to address that fundamental. How are you going to solve the problem that they need solved? And everything else is icing on the cake. All right. So remember that, folks. Hey, everybody, stay positive. Keep taking action. Keep pushing through in your job search. I know it's some a tumult. Chaotic times right now. But keep pushing through, keep taking actions, but most importantly, keep taking the right actions, all right? So everyone have a great day, have a fantastic rest of the week, and we'll chat again soon, all right? Have a good one.